Good morning. It is 11 o'clock in the morning in Florida. It is the 26th of June. How on earth we got to that, I've no idea. Anyway, it's gone so fast. Time goes so fast, as we've talked about. What else is there? It is still Pride Month, so we can talk about that a little bit. I think we might have one or two little controversial topics to talk about today, which is fine. Just please remember, if you have a strong opinion about something, if you want to talk about something, if you don't do it respectfully, we're going to kick you off. Now, I know most of you, and I know you're lovely, and I know that you always do things in a very respectful way. But just keep in mind, for anyone who's new, you can have your opinions. You can say whatever you want on this show. You can ask as many questions as you want on this show. Excuse me. But please be respectful. Having said that, good morning, everybody. You wonder where this is going, don't you? Good morning. Before we begin, I'd like to say good morning to my spirit guide, Gregel, who, as always, is standing to my right side. And I would also like to say good morning to Chris, who is still locked in that room. She's been in that room for days now. Now, she was in that room on Thursday when we did our Thursday morning show. And I haven't let her out since. What can I tell you? She's in there with the cat right now. I'm not going to let anybody out. Right. Anyway, Chris, good morning.
Good morning. Are you going to send food and water?
No, absolutely no. Why would I be that nice to you? Anyway. All right. So, yes, this morning is story time. But before I begin that, let's give people a chance to sort of come on and get settled and so on and so forth. But Chris, do we actually have anybody there?
Yes, people are beginning to log in. Usually
Okay.
it takes 2 or 3 minutes for all the
Yes.
different channels that you have to let them know that you've gone live.
And I don't like to start the story too early because I know that some people, if they are a little bit late, they're going to miss the beginning and wonder what the story is all about. But do we have anyone making a comment or a question yet? It's a bit early, or probably everybody's just saying good morning, right?
Pretty much everyone's saying good morning. Annika's on from sunny Connecticut. Barb and Dean, they're all saying hello.
Oh, great. So let me see what we're going to talk about till we do our story time. We'll talk a little bit about what I've been doing this morning, because this morning I was out with my a lovely guy who cuts my lawns for me and does all sorts of other work in the in around around the garden, outside in the garden. Anyway, probably 2 years ago, I have this beautiful hedge. It was much more beautiful than it is now. It's a beautiful hedge of jasmine. It's evergreen jasmine. And in the spring, sort of early spring towards late spring, it has masses and masses of flowers on it. And oh, the scent that comes from those flowers, the perfume, and you can sit outside by the pool reading, and you sort of get this wafting, incredible, beautiful jasmine perfume that comes and sort of wafts on your nose. But I had occasion to cancel the lawnmower man. I'll call him the lawnmower man. I had occasion to cancel the lawnmower man because, well, he just wasn't doing a great job, and it wasn't for me. And he would, every time he came, he'd knock on the door and he'd tell me, I can trim that for you or that for you, and it's going to cost you $50. That's going to cost you $150. He was always seeming to want to charge me over. I can paint your house for you, and it'll only cost you a few $1,000s, this sort of thing. And so for a variety of reasons, I decided that I would move on, which I did. But the guy and his crew still cut the lawns around the area, one or two, and actually my next door neighbor. But So one morning they were out cutting my neighbour's grass, and then they were sort of standing. The truck was outside, and there were four of them, and they were standing against the truck, leaning against the truck, smirking into my living room and looking very pleased with themselves. And I'd actually heard a noise around the side of the house where there shouldn't have been a noise. And I'd actually heard a noise, but by the time I went around to see what the noise was, there was nobody there. But now these four guys are leaning against the truck, looking very smug, arms folded, and so on and so forth. And when they'd gone, I went out and I realized that they had sliced through two of my beautiful jasmines, which they sliced through them from the bottom, that using a weed whacker they must have used, I'm assuming, and they'd sliced through them. And of course, I found it just after they left. They'd made sure, because I've got cameras around the house, and they made sure that they were not seen on camera. But when you got four guys standing, leaning up against the truck, smirking and looking at you as if to say, yeah, you know, look what we did to you. I knew that they'd done it. There was nothing I could do about it. Anyway, gradually, those two beautiful jasmines have died. So I've been searching for some more, and finally I got them. And I've been out there with my lovely Frank, seeing where I'm going to place these jasmine, and sort of tending to my garden, because after all, it's summer, isn't it? And Chris, you'll bear me out. We have New Guinea impatiens. We have, amongst the New Guinea impatiens, we have rosemary, we have basil, we have mint and parsley, and it's looking lovely, isn't it? It's looking great.
Very lush.
Very lush. And that's because I've also put in, or my lovely Frank put in for me, a really nice irrigation system. So I don't even have to go out there and think about watering anymore. It just at a certain time it comes on, and then half an hour later it goes off. And they're all watered and happy and healthy and so on and so forth. Here is a slight snag with growing your herbs and things. You got to do something with them at some point. Now, I know that some of you joined me a couple of weeks ago to make my pesto, which I use the basil for if you're American. And Chris said to me this morning, we were looking out there, and she said, your basil's going to seed. And she said, your basil's going to seed. And I said, no, not quite, but I'm trimming it off this weekend, and I'm making another batch of pesto. And when I say it's a problem, you got to just keep on top of it, keep cutting it down. But it means then that all through the year, because what I do is I make mine, put it in a jar and freeze it. It means I've got fresh, wonderful, homemade pesto all through the year. So that's what I'll be doing this weekend. How are we doing, Chris? Any more people coming on?
Yeah, I think we're set. I think whoever's going to log on now is here.
Okay, so everybody, okay, I'm going to tell this story. So once upon a time, as all good stories must begin, as you well know, there was a time, and this is a very personal story that I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to tell it because I did promise you personal stories, right? So, and it really does have, even though it might seem to be not about spirituality at all, I promise you it does have a spiritual, well, everything does, doesn't it? What am I saying? It does give us an insight into the soul, into how the soul works. It gives us an insight into life and death and all of those things. So, all right, we're going back many years before my daughter was born. And at this point, I'd been trying for a baby, and I'd been very, very sick. my kidney stuff and all that stuff. So, and then when I was trying for a baby, they found out that everything in my body, and I've got a mess of a body. I have to tell you, my insides are really, they need to be seen to be believed. But everything was back to front, which meant that every time I got pregnant, as soon as the fetus got to be a certain weight or heaviness, it would hit my backbone, bounce out, and abort. All right, so here I am. That had happened to me at least 2 or 3 times at this point. Now, suddenly, yes, joy of joys, I am having a baby. I'm pregnant, and it's sort of official, and yay! And I'm going to say about 3 months, something like that. And I started having stomach pains and some spotting and so on. He did want a personal story. So anybody, any man here not wanting to listen to this, what can I tell you? Wanted a personal story, and here it is. So I put myself to bed. We got the doctor out, and it was not my usual doctor. It was my doctor was on vacation, so I had another doctor come, and he looked at me, and then he absolutely told my husband, "No, she's definitely not pregnant." He'd read my notes, all of the other miscarriages that I'd had, and so on. He'd know she's definitely not pregnant. This is what in dogs we call a phantom pregnancy. Now there's a very fancy name for it if it's in humans, but basically you tell yourself you're pregnant and you have all the symptoms, and you convince yourself, and you convince your body, and so on and so forth, and your body reacts as if you are pregnant. So this is what he's telling my husband, that this is what is going on with my body. And he also says to my husband, so you need to be very firm with her, because, she needs to get out of bed. She needs to get on with her life because she's not pregnant, and you've just got to be really firm with her. So he tells me this, and I somewhat don't believe it. Well, because after all, I've convinced myself, right? It's a psychosomatic condition, I think they call it. Anyway. So we go, even though I'm still spotting now, and more so, and to the point where I'm very uncomfortable, let me put it that way. My husband decides that we'll go and see his parents, which is about an hour's drive away. So we go to see his parents, and as I'm with his parents, and they've been told, my husband has told them, we've got to be firm with her. She thinks she's pregnant, but she isn't. Blah, blah, blah. And as I'm there through the weekend, the pains in my stomach are getting worse and worse. I'm getting severe cramps, really, really severe cramps. Okay. We get home on Sunday night, driving, that hour back, and I'm, sitting there, and now really, really heavily bleeding, not having any fun whatsoever. My husband is completely indifferent to me. He's been told, after all, that he's got to be firm with me. He's got to be tough with me. Monday comes around, so the weekend was Saturday, Sunday. Monday comes around, and I am beside myself with pain. I am doubled up in pain. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm sitting on the sofa, and my husband has been telling me all weekend, don't be ridiculous, you're not pregnant, you need to really cut this out. And I'm sitting on the sofa, and I really, at this point, I've been taking pills like you wouldn't believe. I just can't take enough pain pills, which are probably not helping the bleeding either, but I don't know what else to do with myself. And at some point on, not to drag this story out too long, at some point towards the early evening, I'm in so much pain, and I'm bent over double. I'm racked in pain, and I try to get up off of the sofa, and I literally fall to my knees, and my husband sneeringly says to me, "For goodness sake, just get up. There's nothing wrong with you." So I somehow managed to stumble and crawl, and I'm not exaggerating when I'm telling you I'm crawling across the floor. I managed to crawl up the stairs. I'm crying, not loudly, but tears are coming. I'm beside myself. I feel as if my insides are being torn out. Some of you will know what's coming, won't you? You will know what's coming, right? And I managed to get to the bathroom, managed to pull down my pants. It is a personal story, but I'm telling you this. And I know that some of you have experienced this, maybe one or two, or you know someone who's experienced this. I want to tell you this story because you all know that I'm a very open, upfront person. And whatever's happened to me, I'm happy to share it. And you may not want me to share it. You may not like this story, but I'm sharing it just the same because you did ask me, all of you out there, to give some personal stuff. So here I am. I'm in the bathroom. I managed to get as far as taking my pants down, and it's almost as if the flood happens. And I managed to eventually sort of sit on the floor with my back to the wall. I'm staring down at the fetus. It is formed enough so you can see where the arms and the legs would be. There's this big giant, it looks like a chicken's neck. That's all I can describe to you. Anyway, and the floor is covered in blood and gore and nasty stuff. And I must have screamed. And my husband comes racing up the stairs, probably to give me another scolding, opens the bathroom door and stops dead in his tracks because there's all this stuff on the floor. And the first thing he says to me is, I'll go get a mop. I'll go get a mop and I'll clean it up. And I remember, I'm afraid to tell you, see, you all think that I'm a nice, peaceful, quiet person, but I screamed at him, "Leave it alone. You leave it where it is." And I screamed at him to get out and to call the doctor. Anyway, my lovely doctor then comes to the house, takes one look. My husband tries to tell him, yeah, but the other doctor said, that she wasn't pregnant and I got to be tough on her. And my doctor didn't like my husband anyway, so you can imagine the choice words that were said. And the doctor managed to get me up and somehow clean me up. And he said to me, you know you've had a miscarriage. And I was crying and all the rest of it. Anyway, they needed to stop the bleeding, and very short version of this story. So I end up in the hospital, and they have to put me under anesthetic and clean me out and get rid of all the nasty stuff that's in there. I'm lying in bed, in the hospital bed, and there are two nurses. The curtains are drawn around me, and I'm coming around from the anaesthetic, and I hear the two nurses say, "Well, the lady in there, she's just had an abortion." And I was hysterical. What? No, I did not have an abortion. Well, I found out later that that's the medical term when you abort, whether it's naturally or whether you deliberately do it or whatever it is. It's, in medical terms, it's an abortion. But that word to me felt so awful, so alien, so never, I'm thinking to myself, how could they possibly think, after trying for a baby for all of these years and having so many miscarriages, how could they possibly think that, and so on and so forth. Anyway, so then when something like that happens to you, you go through the could I have done differently? Could I have done it better? What could I have done to you know, to for it not to happen? And over the years, I've thought not just about that particular child, that particular soul, but I've thought of the other miscarriages that I had before then, and after Samantha too. I just can't carry babies because everything's back to front and upside down and all the rest of it. I mean, my body is a mess inside. It looks good on the outside, but it's a mess inside. But then knowing Grey Eagle, getting to know Grey Eagle and talking to Grey Eagle, and having this, you know, this all of this. When does the soul enter the body? With, you know, when does is the fetus just a fetus until it's born, and then so on and so forth. And Grey Eagle was able to help me to understand, and what he has educated me to understand is that some souls, that they choose. We don't choose what happens. They choose what happens. Some souls choose to come here, like obviously like I did, to live this life and have a good life and a long life and so on and so forth, and to learn and to grow. That was my choice, apparently. Some souls choose to just come for a short time. They learn, they grow, they fill their purpose, and then they're very often as children or as young as, you know, teenagers perhaps, but they choose to just have a shorter experience of life. And then there are those souls, and I've had a few of those. There are those souls who apparently they want the experience of being in the womb. They want the experience of connecting with a physical being. They want the experience of connecting with the energy of maybe a certain person, in my case, obviously me, but they want a connection. They want to know what it feels like. They want to have that experience. They want to feel the emotion and the energy of that person whose body they have invaded for however short a time. But they want that experience and they need that experience. But it's their choice. It's their choice to have that experience. So here I am, I'm telling you this story, and it's an awful story. Isn't it a really horrible, awful story? And I don't want anyone to say from now on, oh, how awful, how terrible, how dreadful. We all know that it must be. In we know my ex-husband is not a sympathetic person. I mean, how he couldn't see that I was in absolute dire pain and at least call the doctor and say, I think there's something else going on. But anyway, we all know all of that. So I appreciate you being indignant on my behalf for all of those things. But this is what I want you to take from this story that I'm telling you, which is so very personal to me. And it's not something I often talk about, certainly not in such graphic detail. But what I want you to take away from this is that if, looking back over my life, if I have been privileged enough, yes, I know, but I do feel privileged enough to have been chosen by certain souls to, let's say, to use me, to house themselves within me, to have a taste of the energy that I have, to perhaps become stronger for it, or have a learning experience for it. And if that's the reason, and I do believe that it is, I just feel so grateful that they chose me. As lousy as the experiences were, I can look back on it and I can be really grateful that I had those experiences, and I was able to give those experiences to those souls who had decided that they needed those experiences. Life is complicated. It has all its weird twists and turns. But if a soul chooses just to come here for a very brief time, even if it is in the womb for maybe only a week or two or weeks or whatever, it has come for a reason, and it is learning and it's growing and it's connecting with our energy in a very special way, certainly special for them. So also, and I'm going to say another weird thing, all of those miscarriages that I've had, again, I'll say before I had Samantha and after, led me to be able to have Samantha, because my doctor, as soon as I became pregnant, after that incident that I've just told you about, as soon as I became pregnant again, that was the end of my life for 9 months. Well, my freedom, I shouldn't say my life, but my freedom for 9 months, because I was then put on literally 9-month bed rest. When I was 7.5 months, and I had to have injections every week, and the nurse would come. It was and I grew really, really fat because I wasn't doing anything. My shoulders were like a rugby player's. Anyway, and at 7.5 months, my doctor said to me, "Okay, you can get up, you can do what you like, because if the baby comes now, we're good. We're fine to go." So I got up. I was so excited, and I remember it was Easter, and it was there was a special market going on. It was Easter, and it was the very, very first time I was able to go to the hospital to a prenatal exam. And oh God, I was so excited. It was so fun, so wonderful, and all the rest of it. And then I got to the hospital, and within about 2 hours of me being in the hospital, all the other mothers had come and gone. I'd been examined, but they wanted me to stay for the doctor. All the other mothers had come and gone. And then when the doctor came, I was back in bed in a wheelchair, back in bed, because I had severe toxemia. And anyway, so you see, my experience of having babies is not great, but look at me now, right? I have the most beautiful, darling daughter. She is my pride and my absolute joy. Even though there are times when I could, wring her neck. She's lovely. She really is lovely. She is the best mother ever. And of course, I have my darling boy, Reese. So when you go through trials and tribulations, not just pregnancies, but you go through trials and tribulations of any sort, when you look back in retrospect, we can say, okay, we didn't like it very much, but I guess it got me here, and it helped me to be stronger, and it helped me to understand who I am, and all of those things, that tears and pain give to us. They give us knowledge, and they give us learning, they give us growth, if we're sensible enough to learn the lessons. So in retrospect, we can look back and we can see, wow, yeah, well, I have to tell you that my pregnancy with my daughter was not particularly great. It was tough, but I laughed a lot, and I found joy in the fact that my belly was growing and growing, and I was getting bigger and bigger. But I found joy in that fact. And look at me, I've got a beautiful daughter, I've got a beautiful grandson. So at the end of the day, if I had to go through all of that other stuff, but at the same time give to those souls who just simply needed that experience or wanted that experience, so that they could connect with this earth plane but not necessarily stay here. Isn't that a weird concept? Don't you think it's a weird concept? But I know it to be a fact. I know it to be true, that there are many souls who simply want to be a part of this human thing that we have going on. They want to be a part of this earth cluster of ours, but only for a short time, only for a moment in time, just maybe perhaps for a blink of an eye. And I think that that is a wonderful thing. And if we can give those souls that experience, even though it's awful at the time, in retrospect, it's a wonderful thing. So there you have my awful, gory personal story for today. The end. Let's do that. Let's finish the end. All right, Chris. How did you like that story, Chris?
Well, I think it's appropriate for what we've all learned in the news. We have a number of people who are sharing their own pregnancy or miscarriage types of stories in the chat room.
Okay.
I'm not sure if you want to hear those or just go for questions.
Well, you can.
I know you can read these later.
I can read them later. If you'd like to pick out one or two, we don't have time to have a long story, but I want you all to feel, to understand that, you know, if you've had those experiences, you know that I feel for you. I hope that my story helps you and helps you to understand why you had to go through these things. So if you want to pick out a story, or if you want to go for questions, because I'm going to leave it to you because I can't see what's coming up right now. So if you think there's anything appropriate, go ahead.
Well, Annika says it's so touching and yes, a beautiful explanation for the loss of young people, babies, and miscarriages. It is still a sad experience for people who so desperately want a child.
Yes. Very.
Barb is asking, Rosemary, will you be with those souls again in the spiritual world when you pass?
I don't know. Actually, I'm not really sure. If they want to connect with me, I'll be very happy to connect with them. You know, I have thought from time to time, you know, how they are doing. I don't have any personal feeling of, you know, that they're my sons or daughters particularly, uh, because my pregnancies were, let's say, short. But I have to leave it up to those souls who, if they want to connect with me, I would be there with open arms to connect with them. And but it's their choice at the end of the day. You know, we think that I don't think we realize just how much of a choice we do have. We have a choice to be positive or negative. We have a choice to be tolerant or intolerant. We have a choice to be open or not open. Um, and I choose to be open.
Marlowe says, I have 2 daughters. After I took birth control, but there was a moment when I lost so much blood. I could hardly be pregnant because of the pill, but I always feel like I was. Does Gray Eagle know?
Um, I'm sure so, but I can't. I'm not going to. I'm not going to answer that except to say to you, if you know, when I was going through all my stuff and the doctor said, oh, she's definitely not pregnant and so on, I always knew that I was, but how can you argue, you know, and in those days, you know, the doctor knew, the doctor said, you know, whatever he said was absolutely right. But I think we have a knowing sense, and if you have that knowing sense, I would just listen to that, listen to your own senses and your own sensitivity.
Judith is asking, Rosemary, when I finally get the energy to clean out everything in the house,
Yes.
should I take a deep breath and purge like I would if I were moving, or move slowly? I'm slower anyway because I'm older.
I don't know, darling. I can't tell you how to do that. If you feel like having a purge, I've been having a big purge, I have to tell you. I've been getting, all I keep thinking of is when I die, my daughter's going to have a nightmare of a job. I better really do something about it. Not that I expect to die, you know, anytime soon, But I look at the stuff that I've got, I look at the stuff that I've collected, and I am literally cleansing I'm cleansing my own self as well. Still got a ways to go, let me tell you, but I'm only keeping or trying to keep the things that are important to me, that are of value to me, and the rest I'm just sort of getting rid of. However, my mother used to dictate, when I die, you can have this and you can have that and so on. But you're not to sell it and you're not to do anything with it and all the rest of it. But the only instruction I've given to my daughter is, before you sell it, check on its value. Don't assume that something looks like a bit of trinket or a bit of trash and it's not of value. Just check out the price, but sell whatever you want, do whatever you want with it, because after all, I won't need it, will I? Where I'm going, and I can't expect her to value the things that I value. That wouldn't be a fair thing to do. So I think that purge if you want, go slowly if you want. Maybe one day you'll have a purge and one day you'll just go a bit slower and then you'll go purge again. That seems to be my way of doing things. But whatever you do, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. So keep the things that are important to you. Chris.
Cheryl says, a few days ago, I laid down for a nap, and this very loud voice said my name. It has
Ooh,
happened before, but this one was so loud. It rattled my brain and felt like an electric shock.
wow.
Was it too much energy?
Oh gosh, no. Um, there is a saying in my world that if you hear your name called, it is the greatest accolade. So someone thinks that you're a special person. Someone thinks that you're worthy of an accolade. I would just take it and just smile. I would. Wow, that's fantastic. I have had it happen to me. It doesn't happen very often to people. But if you hear your name called, it is an accolade. It is someone out there saying, you know, uh, literally letting you know that you're special.
All right. Well, I'm hoping that people are going to begin sending in questions, because we know if you have no questions, it's
We're
time to go.
we're off. We're going. I think maybe have I stunned everybody with the personal, with that awfully horrible personal story? Do you think I've sort of stumped everybody? Nobody wants to ask anything anymore, which is fine. And if you really don't want to ask any questions and you're really done for the day, that's great, because we can be done for the day too. We'll just get on with, what are we doing this afternoon, Chris? I don't know. Haven't decided, have we? Maybe you want to go off by yourself and do something by yourself, which is also fine. But what are we going to do then, do you think? Are we finishing? Are we going? Are we done?
I think we're going to try to give it a minute here, folks. Better send in your questions now, or we will be done. I mean, let's face it, Rosemary, the story you shared, for people who have never thought about that in the way that you have expressed it, I think it can be a little bit of stunning, and it would take your mind a little bit to wrap it around what you've
Yeah,
shared.
I think that there are so many people who have these set ideas of right and wrong. And if only life were that simple. We all really know, don't we, that nothing is black and white. There are so many shades of grey in between the rights and the wrongs. And, I think it's really important. For me, I have a certain, uh, let's say, a certain moral code, a certain moral standard, but I don't expect other people to have my code. I don't expect other people to have to sort of live up to my standards. And your idea of what's right or wrong might be very different than my idea of what's right or wrong. And I think before we start judging what is right, what should be or shouldn't be, and before we start judging, especially, people say that, to take your own life is a sin. Well, yeah, it might be a sin in the church's eyes. Let me think about it this for a minute, because in the church's eyes, aren't they men, and some women, of course, now entering the church, of course, but men make those decisions, and not God. I told a story, I think last week, of the old lady who went into the bookstore and said, she got so frustrated, want the book that God wrote. Men, fallible, um, ordinary, perhaps educated, but fallible men and women have made these rules and made these decisions and so on and so forth. But who is to judge what is right or wrong for each individual? We can only go by what we feel is the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. But be careful when you start judging other people for their beliefs. Be careful when you start judging other people for what what is right and not right. Because guess what? You may be in the wrong, thinking strongly that you're in the right, but you may be in the wrong. What if? Just what if you're in the wrong, but you're so set in your ways and beliefs of no, I'm right about this. Um, we have to stay open. We have to stay open-minded, I believe, in order to get the best from life, and in order to not point the finger. We do the bottom brick, and what do I say, Chris, all the time? This is not about pointing the finger. And spirituality and goodness and love and kindness is certainly not about pointing the finger. You can't, on the one hand, say, I'm a spiritual person, I believe in God, and I believe in goodness and light, and then point the finger and judge somebody for something that you might think is wrong, but they don't have the same belief systems. So be careful if you're going to be judging, because you know what happens. The judgment can turn around on you, and you know, I for one would really be very fearful of throwing the first stone, because hey, I got a lot of stuff, a lot of stuff about me that isn't good and isn't right, and I've made many mistakes in my life. And show me a man or a woman who hasn't made those mistakes, and I will show you a liar. So be open and just understand that there are way more things that we know about than way more things that we can't possibly understand the ways and the workings of our spiritual world, our spiritual selves.
So, Rosemary, Judy says I was a massage therapist for many years. I always connected to spirit in my massage room. I have retired for several years ago and find it difficult to connect. Is there anything I can do?
Oh, a trillion things, because you know that you're a natural born healer, and you know that you don't need to necessarily give massage. You can, if this is your way of connecting with God, if this is the way of connecting with your soul, if this is the way of you connecting with your spiritual self, there are so many people out there, just people walking the streets. I go into a shopping mall, and I might see someone who's having a struggle walking, and I'm sending out healing before I'm even thinking about it. And you can do this too, my darling. You've got this lovely healing energy. So that there are animals out there who who might need your healing touch. You don't have to touch them. You just send your energy to them, think about them, visualize wrapping your energy around them, even if it's only for a moment or two. You'll find yourself connecting again to that spiritual force that is definitely within you. You just had a little bit of a dormant spell, but you can do this. Chris.
Flory says, my one wish is that when a person experiences such a loss, that as humans, we didn't feel such excruciating pain, one that seems to last forever and ever, an experience that never leaves our memory.
Well, yeah, I agree in a way, but I think that there are certain uh, there are certain things that are painful to us, and we still remember the pain, and we still, can appreciate the pain. But I think that in many cases that pain lessens. You don't forget the memories, and they can be painful to you. But I think the pain itself can lessens. Um, but thinking back to losing a child, whether you lose a child in the way that I just described, or whether in whatever way, I think the worst loss to bear, personally as a mother, the worst loss to bear for me would have to be the loss of a child. And, you know, there can't be any greater pain than that, I don't think. There can't be any greater pain, there can't be any greater trauma for a person than to go through that. And there are so many well-meaning people who say, give it time and you'll get over it. And that is, number one, it's the worst thing to say to anybody in that circumstance. And number two, it isn't true, because you never lose the pain. You never get over the loss ever, but you do learn to live with it. And you do, if you're sensible and if you're lucky, you learn to share that experience and inspire other people with your strength and your knowing and your knowledge. So, remember the old lady who would say to us, if I could give you a gift for Christmas, I would give you the gift of tears, I would give you the gift of heartache, and I would give you the gift of pain, because it is through these things that you will learn and that you will grow. Now, of course, we don't want the gift. Of course, we don't. We don't want the pain. Of course, we don't. But having experienced so many things in this regard my own self, I can tell you, hand on heart, that as awful as they were to go through, I look back and I can see the reasons why, and I can see my own growth through going through that pain, through living through these painful times, through dealing with heartbreak and all the rest of it. Oh boy, it has made me much, much stronger as a person, much more gentle, and much more aware of other people's pain. So I wouldn't change it. Chris?
All right, Rosemary. Eric says, my mom had a miscarriage. I think this is a brother that now watches over me. Do your miscarried children visit you?
No, they don't actually, Eric. I'd like to tell you that they do, but no, not that I'm aware. No, it's an odd thing, isn't it? But I like to think, this is what I like to think. I like to think that they got something out of the experience with me. They found what they needed, and they've moved on and moved to more enlightened things. Why would they want to hang around me after all? But I like to think that maybe they've taken something away from this earth life through me, and they're using it to become more of who they are. That's what I like to think.
All right, Annika says, I agree with you regarding the rule makers. Like, I also don't see doctors as all knowing gods, as your story also proves.
I know. Thanks for that. Keep going, Chris.
Judith says, yes, healing and caretaking seems to be where my life flowed. I wish I had the tools back then to help more people. I am very compassionate. I will always remember the story you told of the quote, drunk lady in the spiritualist church. Look what gifts and beauty for those who had eyes to see. Of course, she was there for you. It was a lovely story.
Well, and she was a lovely angel, not drunk at all. I love that story. Don't you love that story? I really, really love that story. And I can put myself back there when I'm remembering, and I can still see her walking through the crowd of people who were all oblivious to her as she's walking away, and desperately staring after her, and desperately wanting her to just turn back to me, smile at me, or acknowledge me, or just give me some acknowledgement. But she never did. But just the experience of her putting her head on my shoulder and my hand on her hair, and my saying to her, what can I do for you? How can I help you? I mean, to have had the privilege of that, to have been able to do that to an angel of all things. I mean, wow, isn't that something, Chris?
Cheryl says, "Thank you so much for sharing that story. It brought an end to so many questions."
Oh, good. I'm glad, Cheryl. I'm really glad.
Let us see. Dean had told us a story early on, said, "Speaking of babies, I delivered 3 of my kids,
Oh, wow.
which wasn't planned. One had the cord around his neck,
Uh-huh.
but I knew somehow what to do. I must have had some spiritual help.
You
The
must have.
last was born on Christmas Day. Today is her half birthday, since Christmas babies don't get as many presents,
Oh, good idea. I
and
like.
had a star in the middle of her forehead. I'm not sure if it was blood or a bruise, but it was a perfect star. We certainly have our learning experiences dumped on us sometimes."
Oh, Dean, I had no idea you played midwife. I think it's fantastic. And we'll take the star, whether it was a bruise or a blood or what. We don't care, do we? Because I bet she's a beautiful child. Okay, Chris, keep going.
Well, I think that's it for questions, Rosemary.
All right. Well, oh, look then. We're leaving early. I'm just going to take a sip. Do you want to have anything? Do you want to say anything, Chris?
No, I'm good. I'm just very grateful that we have people show up every week, twice a week, for our live shows, and look forward to seeing you again the next time.
So I will tell you, I'm giving you a little heads up, all of you, those of you who live in or around or near Connecticut. I am planning, we don't have a date yet, but it's pretty certain that I'll be, isn't it, Chris? Is it?
Yes.
Right. So I'm pretty certain that I'll be going to Connecticut towards the middle to the end of August. I might be taking my daughter with me and my darling boy. We're going to be I'm going to be doing an event in a bookshop. We'll tell you more about that. If you are near there or live there or want to head towards Connecticut sometime in middle to the end of August, we shall be putting the information out. My suggestion is that if you want to be a part of it, you need to book your tickets pretty early, because it's a smaller venue. So we'll let you know more about that as soon as we have the date set, and as soon as we have everything set to go, we will absolutely let you know about that. What else?
Well, if they have subscribed to your newsletter, I'm sure it will be in your newsletter come the 1st of July or so.
Yes, yes. So subscribe. It's good. Subscribe. If you don't know how to subscribe, visit our website, rosemaryaltea.com. There's a little button on there. You click on the button and it automatically, I think, subscribes you. Is that right?
Yeah, it will bring you to a place that I'll make sure you're subscribed.
Okay, so if you want to know what we're up to, if you want to know what we're doing, subscribe, and you'll see from what I just told you that at some time in the sort of August and September months, I will be in New York City with my darling boy and of course my darling girl. I'm afraid that when you've got grandchildren, your kids kind of take somewhat a second place. I better not say that. She'll not thank me for it if I say that, so I won't say that. So anyway, all right, we shall be back on Thursday morning with our show, The Spirit World Sees All. We shall hopefully be doing a couple of off the cuffs between now and then. So watch out for us. If you have a topic or a question and you'd rather not do it in the chat room, you can always email us, Chris, K-R-I-S, at rosemaryaltea.com, or Rosemary at rosemaryaltea.com. In the meantime, thank you all very, very much for joining us. Thank you so, so much. I do understand it's going to be busy time for everybody because everybody's packing or moving or getting ready for vacation or whatever it is you're doing. And my grandson just has 1 day left at school, which is Monday. Why they make them go in on Monday, I don't know. But anyway, that's his last day of school. And then he's off for the holidays too. So thank you for joining us. Thank you, Chris, once again for doing a great job. Of course, last but not least, thank you to Grey Eagle for his time, his energy, and his input here. Um, until I see you again, everyone, please, please, please have a very blessed rest of the day and have a very blessed weekend, everybody.